So I got to say, my remarks come from lots of conversations with family and friends from the likes of Carl and Lincoln. So with that being said, let's get started. In December of 2024, Lincoln Canon asserted, quote, "It's getting harder to be an atheist," end quote. However, I regrettably submit that it's also getting harder to stay Christian, based on the same reasons Canon provided against atheism, namely the accelerating gains in technological development, such as radical life extension. My hope is that my own declaration is proven wrong, while Canon's is proven right. For this to happen, it is incumbent upon Christianity, specifically the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, of which I am a proud member, to begin the process of strengthening our remarkable doctrines involving priesthood keys, particularly as they relate to biotechnology, in radical life extension, and even in the divine promise of resurrection and eternal life. Personally, I have struggled to reconcile transhumanism's acceptance of radical life extension and anti-aging juxtaposed with traditional LDS views, which see death as fundamental and that resurrection can only be accomplished with priesthood keys, which have not been given to man on earth. Wherefore, I seek to offer a theological framework titled literal causal lens versus a symbolic functional lens, in hopes to better embrace the exponential growth on the horizon in biotech that will have the ability to not just transform and renew the mind, but also possibly every cell in the body. Hence, it's incumbent upon each member to continuously to choose to renew their minds by aligning with God's ultimate mind and will regarding his potential methods of extending life, even the point of raising the dead and providing eternal life. The question that should be on the mind of every Latter-day Saint is, what if radical life using biotech eventually leads to resurrection, regardless of priesthood keys? Many LDS members are aware of Brigham Young's famous quote on priesthood keys tied to having the ability to raise our dead. Quote, "It is supposed by this people that we have all the ordinances in our possession for life and salvation and exaltation, and that we are administering in those ordinances. This is not the case. We are in possession of all the ordinances that can be administered in the flesh, but there are other ordinances and ministrations that must be administered beyond this world. I know you would like to ask what they are. I will mention one. We have not, neither can we receive here, the ordinances and the keys of resurrection. Wherefore, how do LDS members reconcile this seeming theological quandary? On the surface, people like me included can understandably be concerned with Brigham Young's adamant theological statement that the priesthood keys must be given for resurrection to occur, and at the same time, witness radical life extension, even the possibility of resurrection taking place in our lifetime. If by good chance radical life extension, even resurrection, begins to occur, and that likelihood increases every day, we must take a deep, faithful look into Brigham Young's teachings on the subject to re-express and revision our previous interpretations concerning the role of priesthood keys in resurrection. For many, myself included, we have read and understood President Young, probably himself included, as best described through a traditional literal causal lens. In other words, we interpret priesthood keys as technical switches that can either turn off or on resurrection. Without such priesthood keys, it's ontologically impossible to achieve resurrection. However, one can also theologically interpret these same statements through a symbolic functional lens. This hermeneutical interpretation does not interpret priesthood keys as the actual mechanics of resurrection. Instead, the priesthood keys can be interpreted as sanctifying, as Lincoln likes to talk about, authorizing acts within a covenantal communal framework. Thinkers like Ray Kurzweil, who anticipates the coming of a technological singularity, envisions a future in which human life may be indefinitely extended through biotechnology and artificial intelligence. Such developments illustrate functional power in a natural sense, the ability to modify, replicate, and preserve life in increasing scales. Yet within the symbolic functional lens, the priesthood offers a higher order of function. It does not engineer life, but sanctifies it and authorizes it. While Kurzweil's singularity expands human capacity, priesthood keys function to align that capacity with divine will. Hence, the function of the keys is not technological, but theological, ordering life's extension within God's covenantal framework. Within this symbolic functional framework, it still maintains President Brigham Young's statement, namely, priesthood keys are still required, but to sanctify the event or ordinance of resurrection, just as other priesthood ordinances function the same way. For instance, priesthood keys provide heavenly authorization and sanctification regarding marriages, baby blessings, and baptisms. Moreover, priesthood keys cannot block people from still getting married or baptized in other faiths, just as they will likely not block radical life extension, even resurrection. Again, the priesthood keys might function to provide divine authorization from the heavenly hosts, not just society, that binds marriages, baptisms, but also that of eventual resurrection. Such authorization and sanctification through priesthood keys concerning resurrection may only happen for LDS members and as an institution insofar as we prove ourselves worthy of already living faithful to our covenants we have made in the house of God. As Lincoln Cannon points out, quote, in a world where the fundamental concepts of identity and relationships will be challenged, as they will be consequent in emergent technology, sanctification of these processes will become deeply important to make any coherent sense of the world. Wherefore, it will be vital for church leaders and teachers to help members understand the difference between priesthood keys seen through a literal causal lens versus the symbolic functional lens. More importantly, they should encourage a more symbolic functional lens that supports the necessary need for priesthood keys to authorize and sanctify future acts like possibly radical life extension, even resurrection. Indeed, this will greatly help members frame and embrace a proper theological world that matches their technological worlds. To recapitulate the key points, priesthood keys need not be seen as a literal mechanism that creates resurrection, but rather stands as the divine authority and sanctifier of resurrection into a covenant community shared among the hosts of heaven. This can help prevent members from seeking into a faith crisis and instead empower members to, quote, transform the renewing of their minds, end quote, capable of embracing radical life extension, even resurrection through tomorrow's biotech technologies. Thank you.